Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Today let me show you 10 Safari settings to customize your browsing experience. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 750 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So in Safari, when you go to Preferences, you're faced with multiple tabs with tons of different settings. It's easy to look at all of these and just decide that you'll leave them all alone. But I'm going to show you 10 that you should look at to customize things based on your preferences. Let's start off right here with Safari opens with. This is what happens when you first launch Safari. You could choose to have it open a new window and be ready for you to search or go to a web page. You could have it open a new private window, which will put you in private browsing mode. You could have all windows from the last session reopen. Now this is the one that you may want to choose. That way you can quit Safari and then launch it again and you're right back where you were. And then you could do the same thing with private windows. So let's choose this one and let's say I've got a few tabs open here in this window. So I've got my site, Wikipedia, and Apple open here. I'll quit and then I'll run Safari again and I'm right back with those 3 tabs. Now right below that there are 2 settings here. New windows open with and new tabs open with. And these control what happens when you already have Safari running but you decide to open up a new tab or new window. You've got the same 4 choices for each. You can go to the Start page, a specific page which we'll look at in a minute, start with an empty page, or use the same page that you're currently viewing. In other words, duplicate the current window or tab. In the New Windows setting you can also choose all of the tabs that are in your Favorites folder or all of the tabs that are in a specific Bookmarks folder. Obviously you can't do that with tabs. You just have those 4 main choices. So same page is very useful, especially in situations like this. Let's say you're reading an article and you decide you want to dig down by clicking onto a link. You can click on this link here, but let's say you're not finished reading this article. You can do Command Tab and you can see how it opens up a duplicate of the same page. Now in the new tab you can click to go down. I'll show you another way to accomplish the same thing in a minute. Now next we've got the home page. So the home page is something you could set either in New Windows Open or New Tabs Open to be the page that's the default when you open up a new window or tab. So you could set it to something useful. For instance, if you always go to the same news site to check on the latest news, or maybe you go to a dashboard for your company or organization, you can set that as your home page. And then every time you open up a new window you can set it to open up that home page, or every time you open up a new tab you can set it to open up that home page. You also have a keyboard shortcut here under History to just go to that home page. Now the next one I want to show you is a little confusing. It's Favorites Shows and the default is Favorites, your Favorites folder in your Bookmarks. So of course Favorites is going to show favorites. So what does this actually do? Well, it controls what happens in 2 situations. One, the Start page, and the other is when you click on the address field at the top. Let me show you. Here I am at the Start page and you can see at the top it says Favorites and it shows me the bookmarks I have in Bookmarks Favorites. Also if I'm at a page, like let's go to this one, if I click here in the address field you can see I get this drop down to start off that shows me my favorites. You could change what shows up in these 2 locations. So let's go to Bookmarks and take a look at those. I've created a new folder called Start Page and in there I've put 4 sites that I want to appear in those 2 locations instead of what's in Favorites. So I'll go here and I'll change Favorite Shows to Start Page. Now for this to take effect you want to close the current Safari window or, just to be safe, quit Safari and start again. Otherwise it kind of retains the old settings. So now you can see on my Start page I get Favorites here. If I go to a page and then I click here in the address bar you can see I have the Start Page folder showing here under Favorites instead of the Favorites folder. Now let's look at another setting down here under General. You have Open Save Files after downloading. What will happen there is if you download a certain type of file, in this case movies, pictures, sounds, PDFs, text documents, or archives like zip files, it will automatically open them up after they're downloaded. I prefer to have this setting off for 2 reasons. First of all, it's a little annoying. A lot of times I want to download an image. I don't want it to launch preview and show me that image. I can easily go to the downloads folder and double click it to do that, but most of the time I just want it to save the file. The other problem is I don't consider it completely secure because a long time ago, many years ago, there was an issue where certain files could trigger an app to do certain things, and it truly wasn't safe to have those files automatically opened up just because you clicked on a link. Now there's no vulnerability known today that does that, but I prefer just keep this off anyway. Now let's look under tabs. The second item is when a new tab or window opens, make it active. Now if you look at the first item here, it says that when I command click it opens up a new tab. So this is what I was talking about before. If I click on this link here it will take me to that link. But if I command click on it, it opens up a new tab and keeps the current tab at the current location. Now notice it opened up a new tab, but now I have to manually go to that new tab. Well, with this setting it could do that automatically. So now I command click here and you can see how I jump to it. So basically what it comes down to is which behavior do you use the most? Do you want to be able to click on something and it opens up a new tab and then you have to go to it yourself? Or do you want to have it automatically take you to that new tab? Notice when I check and uncheck this, the descriptions below here change. The and makes it the active tab will switch between command click and command shift click. So obviously command click should be the one that you want to use the most often and command shift click is the alternative. Now let's look under search. Here you've got two settings. Include search engine suggestions and include Safari suggestions. These things will appear when you start doing a search. So you can see here if I search I'll get Siri suggestions and Google suggestions. A lot of time this clutters things up and if you have a slow connection it could even take some time to generate this. But you can see if I turn this off, and turning the first off will automatically turn off this. Then typing that will give me none of that. I can just search Google using this current term. Also you've got show favorites here. So notice when I click in the address field here it shows me favorites and frequently visited. This also clutters things up a little bit, so if you want to get rid of it you can turn that off. And now when I click in this field I get none of that. Now let's move over to advanced. And one thing I like to have turned on is show full website address. And you may notice that in the address bar here I see the entire address. But by default that is off. Meaning that when you're at a page here you just see the website. Usually that's not good enough for me because sometimes I could have multiple tabs open for the same website and I want to be able to see exactly which page each one is looking at. Now another important one is reading list. Save articles for offline reading automatically. If you use the reading list, say on your MacBook, to save pages so you can read them later, turn this on. That way it will happen automatically. So when I have an article like this and I go and add it to the reading list, I can then go to my reading list here and know that this article is ready for offline viewing. Otherwise I'd have to control click on it or swipe to choose an option to save it. If you want to use the reading list for offline reading all the time, just turn this on and it becomes basically a feature that does exactly that. And here's a bonus one. Go back to search and make sure you have checked enable quick website search. You can click here on this button to see different sites that have this set up. How do sites get in this list? Well, you have to go to them and do at least one search. So for instance at MACMOST use the search field at least once to do a search, or at Wikipedia use it once. Now once you've done that you can go into the search field up here, type the website name and then a space and then type a search term. And notice you'll get search macmost.com for iMovie. So this is quick website search and it basically does a search into that website using the native search field in that site. So I can do the same thing for Wikipedia. Something like that, and you can see I get the quick website search here. And I get the same result as if I had used the Wikipedia search field. So check out each of these preferences and set them to your liking so you can get the most out of using Safari. I publish new tutorials every weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. Then hit the little bell icon to get notifications for each new tutorial.